welcome to my live stream today. I am Elizabeth Omore, the productivity strategist. If this is your first time joining my live stream, please type your name and your location in the comments. I would like to meet you. Thank you for joining me today. Did you catch the replay of the first installment of the consistency protocol? If you didn't, please head over because this is the second installment, and we are talking about the consistency protocol, how to eliminate decision fatigue and transform vision. So last week we talked about the friction audit and the minimum viable execution framework. Did you take the closeout affirmation? The closeout affirmation, what was one takeaway? What was the action point from last week? If you joined me drop in comments what you learned and what you did differently. This is the second installment of the consistency protocol. Thank you for joining me today. So consistency fails because you hold a different internal representation of the goal or the goal. You have a high fidelity understanding of the task and the context, the desired outcome, the task and the context of the desired outcome. So consistency is to ensure that you know your why before you start. You know your why, you understand you have a high fidelity understanding of the task, the context, and the desired outcome. Do you understand your why? Do you understand what is driving that thing that you want to do? That's critical why. Answering that critical question is extremely important. Manage decision to development cycles because consistency can be lost in the gap between deciding to act and which is putting in the required work. Okay, putting in the required work. And so you have to break your goals down into milestones. You have to break your goals down into milestones so that you know per time what you are meant to execute. You can craft vividly what done looks like. You know that, okay, today this is what I'm meant to do. And by the time 24 hours is done, you know that this was what I was able to achieve today, right? Okay, so you have to understand what done looks like, right? You have to understand your why. You have to understand what done looks like. You have to understand that your goals have to be broken down into milestones, right? So break your goal down into milestones that you can track and start asking, what is the primary outcome I am protecting today? What is the primary outcome I am protecting today? Your goal is to get it done. What is the primary action that I am protecting today? Your goal is to get it done. What is the primary outcome I am protecting today? Your goal is to get it done. So course correct immediately when you go off tangent because your goal is already set. You have your milestone in place. Once you have all of that, then you know that you can course correct when you are off tangent, right? So ask if this project failed in a month's time, why did it happen? So you're working back in time to trace your steps and ask, why did this happen? If this goal fails, why did this happen? So it's like an inversion you are integrating into your current season, and you're asking, if this fails, what actually made it fail? What are the actions that I will take that will make this fail? Okay, so your action plan is to manage the velocity gap. And last week we talked about the no we set a floor rule that you can't say no. The friction, the no zero rule is where you set a floor so low you can't say no. And this is where you are building on your identity of becoming a person who is consistent, who doesn't break the streak, who shows up every time they decide they want to get stuff done. Do you understand? You're building an identity. And if you told me, I think it was the second week where I talked about excruciating growth. that the person who receives the vision is not the same person who executes it. You have to grow to become a different person. Yes. So now you must learn how to defend the execution the execution circle. Thank you for joining me. If this is your first time joining the live stream, please let me know your name and where you're joining me from. Thank you for joining this morning. So the consistency protocol, you can also drop your questions in the comments so I can take them afterwards, right? The consistency protocol, the architecture of airlight execution. This is the second installment. So two frameworks that we're going to focus on today. The first is the intellectual asset map. That's your transactive memory systems, where you eliminate the search by organizing who and how. And the second is the velocity gap management, the no pivot zone, where you are eliminating the drift by protecting the commitment from the tweak. Yes, a lot of people fall into this tweak trap, and I'm going to talk about it much later. So, consistency is not a mood. Consistency is not a mood, it is an environment you build. And you clear that ground by auditing the friction. Remember last week we talked about the friction audit, identifying the brain behind your work and what you must do to eliminate that so it doesn't stand in your way. Okay, so every time you have to hunt for a process or a strategy, you are burning the fuel that belongs to your execution. Every time you have to hunt for a process or a strategy when you want to execute on a task, you are burning the fuel that belongs to your execution. So create the intellectual asset map. Create the intellectual asset map. You're defining who owns the vision, the strategy, and the inversion. You're defining who owns the vision, the strategy, and the implementation. So stop searching for your processes every time you are about to execute on that goal or that task. Stop searching for your processes. You are burning fuel that is meant for execution. A professional does not hunt for just access everything that has been processed, prepared for that action that they're about to take. So if you decide to start hunting for your processes when it's time to execute, you have already lost momentum. And remember, activation energy is required, that little push, that force that is required for you to kickstart that process, that goal, that vision that you have in your mind. So activation energy is required. So you would need all the energy you can get from all sources, and you can't afford to lose momentum or to lose speed at that point in time. Okay, so now moving on to